This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Friday, May 22nd. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. We'll have the latest on the coronavirus in just a moment, but we begin with the discovery of the remains of a fugitive major suspect linked to the 1994 Rwandan genocide. United Nations War Crimes Prosecutor Serge Brammertz said Friday that Augustin Bizimana's grave has been identified in Congo. Bizimana, who was indicted on 13 charges, including genocide, murder, and rape, is believed to have died in Pointe Noire in the Republic of Congo in 2000. His remains were identified by DNA testing. Now to the latest on the coronavirus. New scientific models are showing that South Africa's future in the fight against COVID-19 may be grim, despite the country's national lockdown that is in its 6th week and is slowing infections. The nation could see up to 50,000 coronavirus deaths and as many as 3 million infections by the end of the year, as the southern hemisphere winter leads to a higher rate of infection, according to Reuters. South Africa already has the continent's highest number of infections and deaths, and with more than 18,000 confirmed cases and almost 340 deaths. Scientists and statisticians hired by South Africa's health ministry to model the spread of the deadly disease say models which consider best and worst scenarios see as many as 3 million possible coronavirus cases by November. In West Africa, members of Nigeria's largest medical union are back on the job Friday after ending a strike over alleged police harassment of doctors as they traveled to and from work during a night curfew. The Nigerian Medical Association, which represents doctors, says it ordered them back to work after receiving assurances that doctors would be exempt from the curfew and would be allowed to commute without being harassed. Nigeria has more than 6,000 reported cases of COVID-19 and 200 deaths. Most of the deaths are in Lagos. There has been a surge of claims in Tanzania of herbal cures for the coronavirus. Despite endorsements by some public officials, medical experts warn that no treatments should be taken at face value until scientifically tested. Charles Combe reports from Dar es Salaam.
At her farm on the outskirts of Dar es Salaam, Mwajuma Saidi collects peppers, mango leaves, and other ingredients to steam and prepare what she believes is a cure for COVID-19. Her granddaughters are taking it too, even though they are not sick.
We just do it as a caution. We did it for almost 4 days, then we stopped. We also took lemon, ginger, pepper, and onions, then blended them and put it in a bottle. We started using it in the morning, afternoon, and evening for 4 days, and then we stopped.
There's no evidence Mwajuma's potion does anything to combat the coronavirus, nor any others that have been touted. But the number of people in Tanzania who claim to have discovered a cure for the novel coronavirus keeps rising. Some are pushing an untested herbal potion called Covidol.
Since we discovered this herbal cure, it has been used by a few people, but among those who used it, we have seen some success. Firstly, we have seen it lower fever faster. It fights respiratory problems, influenza, and body fatigue, things that emerge in this disease.
Authorities say any coronavirus treatments need to be challenged first under strict clinical trials to see if they are effective.
What we are waiting now is the instructions from the General Secretary so as to include this herbal medicine in our research.
Meanwhile, Mwajuma and her granddaughters continue to do their best to protect themselves from the virus, even though they are unsure their concoctions work. Charles Combe for VOA News, Dar es Salaam.
In Ghana, the COVID-19 pandemic is spurring health technology innovations, from applications to tracking symptoms in workplaces to online diagnosis and drone delivery of test samples. As confirmed infections continue to rise, reaching over 6,000 cases and over 30 deaths. Health tech experts want to ensure people have access to needed medicines and doctors. Stacey Knott reports from Accra.
Ghana's healthcare technology companies like Redbird are creating innovations in response to the coronavirus pandemic. Redbird already had a system that helps users diagnose and monitor chronic and tropical diseases. Now, the company has added a function that helps people diagnose whether they have COVID-19. Users can input symptoms into an app and keep track of their movements to determine if they have been in contact with a confirmed case.
Organizations are going to have to come back to work, right? And you're going to have to find a safe way of coming back to work, right? Not every organization can work remotely. So this is something that is moving ahead and helping organizations to sort of like plan this and be able to say, okay, I know my people, okay, we are going to be back in 2 weeks. I want to know everyone, like who's been in touch with a COVID patient. Like, okay, you don't need to come. Like, let's not risk it for the other people.
With a shortage of healthcare facilities across Ghana and to encourage social distancing, Ghana's doctors have looked to technology to consult patients remotely.
When the pandemic started, I noticed that most of the people were scared to come to the clinics and the hospitals because they thought that they were going to get the infection from there. So then Thalamus reached out to me and they were like, how about we take this opportunity to use telemedicine as a form to reach our patients.
Thalamus Ghana's Joshua Owusu-Ansah says COVID-19 has underscored the need to utilise technology for healthcare.
I think it's going to be an eye-opener to show Ghanaians and Africans especially that there's less stressful ways of doing things, right? Because to get a lot of things done in Ghana and Africa is really, really hard because a lot of our systems are just kept manual. So this is one of the eye-openers that's going to show us that we need to do some things using technology. We need to leverage technology to do some things.
Perhaps the most famous example of healthcare tech in Ghana is the Silicon Valley company Zipline's use of drones to transport medicine and blood samples. With the coronavirus, drones have been carrying samples from suspected COVID-19 patients to laboratories in big cities to speed up diagnosis and help better track the pandemic. Stacey Knott for VOA News, Accra.
When wealthy countries have a hard time containing COVID-19, what happens to developing countries where electricity is not a given and clean water is scarce? These countries need ventilators, medical oxygen masks, and other supplies to help them get through the pandemic. VOA's Carol Pearson reports on a program that is funding innovations where they're so desperately needed.
In Sao Paulo, the death toll from COVID-19 is so high, officials say it's a struggle to get the dead buried. Overwhelmed healthcare workers and hospitals in much of Latin America struggle to care for the sick with far fewer resources than in Europe or the United States. In South Africa, people line up to be tested. Every country in Africa has recorded cases of coronavirus.
I'm John Kelly, the founder and CEO of Atomo Diagnostics.
Atomo Diagnostics makes HIV test kits. Now it's gearing up to produce blood-based tests for COVID-19. Ventilators are badly needed in developing countries. Portable, battery-run ventilators like this one are critical. Gradient Health Systems is a non-profit medical technology company. It makes these ventilators for African countries and provides training and technical support.
So if it breaks or there's, an issue with it, there's someone immediately able to fix it. And
even after the pandemic is over, Gradient's ventilators will be in place.
So what we see it as a very layered approach and a long-term approach to not only just a response to COVID-19, but how do you build preparedness for the next inevitable thing that may come our way.
In India, girls cannot attend school regularly, and women have difficulty keeping their jobs unless they have menstrual pads. Enter Saral Design Solutions. Now the company is retooling machinery to make face masks as well, with a grant from Grand Challenges Canada, an operation that supports innovators in low and middle-income countries.
So what we're doing now is just accelerating by putting more attention, more funding, and more support into the innovations we had previously funded.
The funding is provided in part by a number of investors, including the Canadian government.
We had already invested in several different innovations to increase the access of medical oxygen in areas of the world where that is not as common as we see in developed countries. And that's exactly the kind of first line treatment that is needed for severe COVID.
The goal is to provide aid during the coronavirus pandemic, and when it's over, to leave these countries better off than before, so they can provide reliable medical care going forward. Carol Pearson, VOA News, Washington.
Eid al-Fitr, the most festive Muslim holiday, is marked with celebrations, friends and family reunions, and a lot of feasting. This year, the coronavirus is threatening to dampen that spirit. VOA's Ayesha Tasneem reports on how Muslims in various parts of the world are planning to celebrate Eid this year.
Shops are finally open in Pakistan after a nearly 2-month lockdown because of the coronavirus. It's days before Eid and customers are rushing to make up for lost time. The crowds in many bazaars are ignoring warnings and guidelines to protect against coronavirus.
I don't think it's such a big deal. I want people to continue their lives and routines as usual. Whatever is fated to happen will happen.
Unlike Pakistan, many countries such as Egypt are still closed. Eid al-Fitr marks the biggest shopping season in most Muslim countries. But this year, many businesses will feel the pain of lost income.
Last year there were clients, there was movement, we were able to work. There was a source of income. Now there is no income, there is no season, we do not feel the season, we do not feel the hate.
Some countries, like Indonesia, have even banned the special group prayers for Eid. Others, like Saudi Arabia, are urging people to pray at home. And some, like Iran, are only allowing Eid prayers in open spaces with social distancing. The celebrations and outings that people have grown accustomed to on Eid will not be around this year.
The normal rituals is after the Salah day, on that day, people go out to visit friends and families. But these days it should be minimized.
That has led many to think of creative ways to bring some kind of normalcy in this abnormal situation.
This will be a kind of digital Eid. People will wish each other on phone calls or video calls. I think everyone will get ready and make videos, but won't be able to do much else.
People with children are particularly concerned with creating a festive atmosphere at home.
We can take them to the balcony, bring them balloons at home, create for them an atmosphere of joy and happiness of the Eid, so they don't feel like we are in a catastrophe.
In one New Jersey county in the U.S., a Muslim mayor has come up with a unique plan.
For us in Teaneck, I'm going to have, front yard parties, where basically everybody can go out in the front yard, you set up your chairs, you set up your table, and if you want to, people can drive by, and that's the way we're going to all see each other.
One thing is for certain, people will long remember this year's Eid as one of hardship and restrictions. Ayesha Tasneem, VOA News, Islamabad.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a treat of enchanting music from Sao Tome and Principe. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Africa 54. After initially acknowledging the authority of U.S. states to decide how best to mitigate the coronavirus outbreak, U.S. President Donald Trump has been encouraging anti-lockdown protests against Democratic governors in battleground states he needs to win to be re-elected in November. As VOA's Brian Padden reports, Trump's critics accuse him of trying to exploit the pandemic response for political gain.
Protesters in states such as Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan calling for an end to the coronavirus lockdown have President Trump as an ally.
There are a lot of protests out there, and I just think that some of the governors have gotten carried away.
While these states often lean Democratic, they helped propel Trump to victory in 2016 and could again play a key role in deciding the 2020 election. Trump supporters say he is right to push back against what they say have been excessive and arbitrary economic restrictions imposed by the Democratic governors of these states.
He wants to allow states to determine their lockdowns, but that doesn't mean he's not going to criticize the ones that are going over the line.
Some protesters in Michigan have been armed with assault rifles. Joe Biden, the Democratic presumptive nominee for president, has denounced the intimidation tactics of demonstrators and blasted the president for sowing discord. Trump's critics say the president's inconsistent response to the pandemic, empowering the states and then criticizing their governors, is politically driven to shift blame for the crisis away from himself.
If he is able to basically, divide himself, separate himself from these individual governors in these states, particularly swing states like Michigan, for example, he can say, look, it's those governors' fault, not my fault, that the economy is faltering, so blame them.
The United States has the most coronavirus cases in the world, and over 91,000 people so far have died from the outbreak. The crisis has also idled much of the nation's economy, leaving millions without jobs. President Trump is pushing to reopen the economy despite concerns from health officials that the country still lacks the large-scale testing and surveillance capability needed to control the outbreak. Political analysts critical of the president describe Trump's strategy as reckless because it encourages crowded protests that could further the spread of the deadly virus. They also say the strategy is an implicit acknowledgement of the president's shortcomings during the crisis.
On one level, he's saying, hey, reelect me because, I can bring the economy back. On another level, he's saying, well, I wasn't able to manage the states and the governors very effectively.
All 50 states have now begun to partially reopen their economies, and a number of them are experiencing an upward trend in new coronavirus cases, adding to uncertainty over how the pandemic will affect voting in November and the outcome of the election. Brian Padden, VOA News, Washington.
The coronavirus pandemic is forcing people around the globe to postpone or downsize large gatherings, including important family events like weddings. In countries with strong family ties like Sudan, tradition dictates a large wedding. But as Naba Muhyiddin in Khartoum discovered, holding a big ceremony during a pandemic would put her friends and family at risk.
An average wedding in Sudan has thousands of guests. So when my boyfriend proposed, my family and friends expected nothing less. But the coronavirus pandemic put a stop to large gatherings, including our March wedding plans. I not only had to cancel all our bookings, I also moved out of my parents' house, so as not to put them at risk from the virus. So now I'm alone and trying to figure out the next step. Some of my friends held small weddings. But as the first child of my parents to marry, they want a big celebration. We haven't decided on a date yet, as it's not possible to book any venues until the lockdown ends. But there is a strong feeling that even when restrictions are lifted, the virus will still be a threat. So we will all have to decide when and how to hold our wedding without putting those we care for in danger. COVID-19 has not only altered our daily lives, it may also force us to change our traditions, including my wedding. Naba Muhyiddin for VOA News, Khartoum.
Anti-coronavirus announcements are appearing in unlikely places across Kenya. They are on sound waves and on community walls. This is all part of separate initiatives by Kenyan artists to disseminate life-saving information about COVID-19. VOA's Ayeng Dengbio has more.
The music is catchy. You might even say it's infectious. But the artists behind this song say it was written to fight a deadly virus that is far more contagious.
We really wanted to make sure that people get to understand the message about coronavirus. And also what we were trying mostly was to localize the message. Because by that time, most of the messages that were coming out were messages from WHO and the international body. Because by the time we were planning even to do the song, we had not yet reported the first case in Kenya. So we wanted to talk about the message earlier so that people will start getting prepared and know what to do in case we start getting cases in Kenya.
Munieri and the musicians in this music video are part of a fraternity of artists who are using their talent to spread anti-coronavirus messages. And the radio is not the only vessel to send these public service announcements. Just northeast of the capital, in Nairobi's Mathare, a large informal settlement with a population of 500,000, residents can look to the walls, where graffiti artists are doing their part to help stop the spread of the coronavirus.
The idea of graffiti was basically to give people that message right at their doorstep, right at their setting, so that they know how to protect themselves, what is expected of them, and how they can make proactive choices that are going to make sure that COVID-19 does not spread.
This is one of 7 murals painted as part of a light art club initiative to increase awareness on COVID-19.
Hopefully, the message will get home, and the people will be in a better place, to protect themselves and also to protect their loved ones.
Whether it's a beat you can dance to or a mural you can stare at, the goal is to spread simple messages of washing hands, wearing masks, and the dangers of shaking hands. Munieri says their song was written and produced by a team of local artists and singers who are recognizable in the community. He says this strategy could help his community understand that COVID-19 is not a foreign issue and should be taken more seriously. But there are limitations in spreading the message among communities, says graffiti art campaign partner Anthony Mweli.
All the resources we use from this campaign, we get them from our own pocket, which is becoming a very big challenge because there are so many places in the slum where we can go and further put the message. I would really urge so many people to come right now and work with us together.
But still, artists continue to paint and sing.
Music is very powerful, and basically there is no one person who will ever tell you that they don't listen to music, whatever sort of music they get to listen to.
And that is something most can agree with. Ayen Dengbior, VOA News, Washington.
In our entertainment segment, it's not often that we hear music from the 2-island nation in the Gulf of Guinea, Sao Tome and Principe. But one sibling duo is creating such beautiful music from there, and the world is taking notice. The host of VOA's Music Time in Africa, Heather Maxwell, is joined by Kwame Ofori with more. Hi, Heather. Hi, Kwame.
Hi, Esther. Hey, Kwame.
Hey, Heather. Hi, Esther.
All right, so we have a wonderful song for you this week. It's called Te Amo.
And it's by Kalema.
And the name of the group, Kalema, is the sound of the coast of West Africa, the sound of the water. And let's mention the name of the country they're from. It's Sao Tome and Principe off the west coast of Africa.
Let's get right to it.
Let's do it. Right, so that was Te Amo by the group Kalema.
Oh, yep. We hope you enjoyed it. And I'm Mr. Santi.
And I'm Heather Maxwell. And that was...
Song
of
the
week.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.